אני רוצה להתנצל, אני עדיין עולה חדש וזה עדיין נוח לי לדבר באנגלית. So I'm going to turn to English, and let me say first of all that there is right now battery storage in Australia is the big thing. We've been through a process where renewable energy was the big thing. Australia had a target of achieving 20% renewable energy by 2020, and they achieved that. They got just over 20% by 2020, but that success has brought some problems. And the problems are really all around system stability. So whilst 20% is the average across Australia, there are certain states that have been far more successful with renewable energy, and part of that is about the natural resources. So in South Australia, for example, there is very good wind and very good solar. And in the last few months, there have been a number of times, it's quite regular actually, that the entire state is powered 100% by wind and solar. And there have even been times when South Australia is completely powered by solar alone. Now that brings challenges because, as we all understand, both wind and solar are intermittent. They can't be controlled. And as a result, there's been a necessity to make sure that for system stability, that batteries can be used to stabilize the network. I developed, or I was the co-developer of a 309 megawatt wind farm in South Australia called the Hornsdale Wind Farm. That project won a competitive process to build what at the time was the largest battery in the Southern Hemisphere. It's called the Hornsdale Power Reserve, and it was initially 100 megawatts and it's now been expanded. That project was very interesting because it was a project that was supported by the government, and it was supported by the government in order to ensure system stability. The project was very successful and in fact repaid through the value of ancillary services, repaid its cost to the government within the first 2 years of operation. We're now moving into a new phase entirely with batteries, and I'm just going to share with you quickly an extract from the news today in Australia. And if you can see, this is a picture of one of Australia's largest coal-fired power stations.
We see nothing. We see a background, but not the slide.
Okay, sorry. Can you see it now?
It seems so. Yes, we can.
So this is a picture of the largest coal-fired power station in Australia. It is owned by a company called Origin Energy. It is one of the newest power stations, large-scale coal-fired power stations. But even so, it's about nearly 40 years old. And it was built by the government. It was sold to a private company. And that company has announced that they're going to be taking this project offline. Today, they announced that they're going to build a 700 megawatt capacity battery to utilize the network connection. And that is really because the cheapest power in Australia today is coming from solar and wind. But in order to provide a 24-hour solution, the electricity companies need to invest in batteries. And if we go just a little bit further on, you can see the headline here, the race is on for Australia's biggest battery. And that is because there've been a number of announcements of mega batteries in the last few weeks. So that is a reflection of where things are. And if we try to understand what is going on here, one of the big differences between Australia and Israel is that now, since 1995, Australia has had a deregulated electricity pool where the price of electricity is set on a half-hourly basis through a competitive process. And that has resulted in some very significant volatility in electricity prices within the day. So we see, for example, that regularly the power price in Australian dollars is more than $100 a megawatt hour, but we're also seeing negative prices. And of course, batteries are able to arbitrage between the negative prices and the higher peak prices. So there is that economic and commercial mechanism. There is also the opportunity to sell ancillary services. And then, of course, there are government programs to support batteries. And we're also seeing batteries as not just these large-scale batteries, but also small-scale batteries coming into homes and so forth. So the way tariffs are set out at the moment, if you, in a typical house in Australia, your solar energy, and I should say that there are about 3 million homes in Australia. Australia is only 30 million people. About 3 million homes already have solar panels. And but the issue with solar panels is that for each kilowatt hour that you replace energy that you would otherwise be generating, it's worth about 20 to 25 cents a kilowatt hour. But if you export energy, the tariff that you receive is between 5 and 10 cents. So it's much more valuable to utilize the energy behind the meter than to export to the grid. And for that reason, what we see is that it is already commercially viable to add a battery to a house that has solar panels in order to ensure that they're not selling power to the grid at a very low tariff. And that is properly reflecting the difference between the value of energy when the sun is shining and the value of energy when it's not shining. So I might stop there, and I'm happy to take any further questions.